Hey guys, welcome back to the last episode of my Year of the Demon series, and I am so happy that I actually have a good movie to review this time. It is Cemetery Man, otherwise known as Dellamorte, which is kind of a better title, honestly. And it is a good movie. And the weird thing is, I saw this movie yesterday, and after watching it, I was like, okay, that was alright. I kind of enjoyed that. And then, I sat on it for a day, and I, wrote all my notes for this review, and watched some bonus features for it, read some stuff about it, and it kind of sunk in there, this really is an amazing movie. It just kind of transcends that whole, trashy Italian horror feel, and it actually feels like something very profound for the genre, which is something you can't say too often when it comes to horror movies, especially Italian ones. And I think the main reason is that this really doesn't feel Italian. It was multiple other countries were involved in the production, but it has Italian roots. Obviously, as I mentioned before, Michele Soavi, who directed The Church and The Sect, and also another movie called Stage Fright, which is not related to The Demon, so I did not review it, but I have heard it's a really good slasher movie in the genre. And also a great first effort from a director, because it is known as one of the classics from the genre, or at least kind of a middling classic. Anyways, talking about Cemetery Man here, this feels like a entirely different movie than what I've been watching. Even though I've watched this guy's same stuff earlier in this Year of the Demon series, Cemetery Man really feels like it's the most accessible to an American audience or a British audience as well. It doesn't feel so out there, and you can definitely relate to it. And it kind of feels like some art house films that might be released in America or the UK. This was released in 1994, and it stars someone named Rupert Everett, who is really big in America, probably the biggest actor in any of these Demons movies, because he played in this movie called My Best Friend's Wedding, which I have never seen despite my absolute love of rom-coms. I know him from something else. It's also based on a book by Tiziano Scalvalli, which is famous for making a comic book series called Dylan Dog. Now, Dylan Dog was actually made into a movie. Now, Dylan Dog was kind of this offbeat, dark comedy comic book that was mainly famous in just Italy. But there was a character from that story that crossed over with this character of Dylan Dog one time named Francesco Dellamorte. Now, this character then got his own book, and now he has his own movie adaptation. So, in this, Rupert Everett, who was actually, his facial features were kind of inspiration for writing the Dylan Dog comic, which I find awesome. He actually plays Francesco Dellamorte in this, and he is a caretaker to a cemetery, but the dead come back to life. Now, he calls these things returners. Not every person who gets buried in a cemetery comes back to life, but it's roughly 7 days after they come back if they are a returner. Dellamorte spends most of his days with his assistant named Nagi, who is this kind of rotund guy who can't really speak, and he's very weird and peculiar, but it kind of works. I would throw up a picture of him. It's really hard to describe what he's like without actually showing you guys what he's like, but hopefully this picture kind of sums up this dim-witted guy that is working alongside Dellamorte. Now, the whole story kicks into high gear when Dellamorte notices that a new person who died has their widow coming every day to give flowers and whatnot. And he develops a huge crush on her. So he tries to speak with her. It doesn't quite work a lot because he's hitting on a girl whose husband just died. But he eventually kind of hits things off with her, and they start making out on her dead husband's grave, which sounds awful, but she says she doesn't want to keep any secrets from him, which, okay, it still sounds awful. Lucky for us, the husband comes back to life as a returner, takes a big old bite out of her, and Dellamorte kills the husband, leaving it with just the woman, which is really just referred to as she. She's never given a name. And he believes that she has died, so once she, sits back up, he pretty much blows off the side of her head and kills her. But that's only the beginning, because after that, it becomes this whole surreal thing going on. I would say this movie is very akin to kind of Dead Alive and the zombies that you see. There's a guy who dies, there's a huge car pileup, a lot of people on motorcycles die, huge bus full of people, which bring about a bunch of returners all at once. Now, one of these people must have been buried with his motorcycle because he pops out of the grave in full motorcycle get-up, connected to the motorcycle, just driving around, and Dellamorte has to kill him. And it is so out there. There's times when it's like these dead Boy Scouts show up and they just have chattering teeth the whole time. And just a casual way that Dellamorte just off these people. Like, there's times when they're just walking into his house one by one and he's talking on the phone while shooting them in the head without a care in the world. So you can kind of see this Dead Alive vibe, but then it also just kind of clicks to this very, like, introspective and dreamlike movie that is totally not like Dead Alive whatsoever. And it really is its own thing. I can't think of a single zombie movie out there that's even remotely like this. To give you guys a little bit more of the plot, because I just like this movie so much I kind of just want to talk about it, is after that he notices that when all these zombies are popping back up, that the girl, she comes back as a zombie. And he's like, okay, well, wasn't she already a returner? She popped up right after she was bitten. Then he finds out if you get bitten, you don't automatically die. She just died like a fright. And when she came back up, she actually wasn't dead. So he killed her before, and now he has to actually kill her, return her body this time. After this, he meets people who look like her. One of them's like a prostitute, and the other one is like the assistant to the mayor. Both of them end very badly for one of them, and the other one very badly for Dellamorte. I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say one of these women kind of involves chemical castration, which is a great scene upon itself. Also was that whole big car pileup I mentioned earlier. Nagi, like, is obsessed with the mayor's daughter, and who dies in a car accident, and he digs her up, takes off her head, and her head, like, kind of, like, has a crush on him now, so, like, they kind of, like, hit it off for, like, 30 minutes in the movie, just kind of hanging out, doing their own thing. And that's, like, the kind of stuff where it feels like Dead Alive. It's like when he has the baby that he's just carting around, and it's just kind of like this subplot that has no point whatsoever. It is such a good movie, and, you know, so is Dead Alive. I should definitely review that one, too. So after he kills all of these returners, Dellamorte is visited by Death himself, who says, hey, I will have all these people stop coming back from the dead if you start killing the living. And this is where it starts to become even more dreamlike, because you don't know if Dellamorte is kind of hallucinating and stuff, if he knows he's doing it or whatnot, but he goes out and starts killing people, especially, first off, these people who are just bothering him the entire movie. And then it kind of escalates to a much more comedic way, where pretty much anytime he meets someone, he's just shooting them just because he doesn't care anymore. And what's really funny about it is he doesn't get any credit for it. Like, he kind of wants to take the credit, but people keep, like, putting it on someone else, or, like, not seeing, like, oh, you're the one with the gun, maybe you're killing people. They just kind of brush all this stuff under the rug, and you can see it's frustrating him. And from there, it enters, like, almost full-on surrealism. You can't tell what exactly is true and what is not, especially once you get to the ending, which I will not spoil, but it took me a while to, like, kind of get it and understand. But I definitely recommend this movie to anyone who is a fan of horror movies, because it is a horror movie from the 90s that doesn't suck, which is very rare before Scream and after Scream. It's really rare with any movie besides Scream. And I want to say it's just a great experience, especially these more, like, introverted stuff where you have to, like, think about what's happening on screen more and need, like, time to contemplate it and whatnot. It's definitely a heavier horror movie than what you're used to, but again, it gives you the same sensibilities and gore as any other of the great Italian movies out there, like even Demons. Like, I would say, though this movie isn't as gooey as Demons, it has great effects and great gore on display. And so many headshots. Oh my god, so many heads explode in this movie. Unbiased here, it may be the best Demons-like movie out there. I personally loved the first Demons movie. I think that is a classic and is my favorite. But from an outside perspective, not being biased, I think Cemetery Man is probably the best of all 12 movies that I reviewed this year. So if there is one movie you need to seek out, please make it Cemetery Man. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but I will say that this DVD kind of was pretty expensive. I think I paid around $30 for it, and it's not like it's a new release or anything. Maybe there is, like, another Blu-ray release out there that I'm not aware of, but it was kind of hard getting hold of this, but honestly, it was worth it. I really want to, like, show this at a Halloween party and show my friends it and just kind of get it out there as much as I can. So hopefully this review helps a bit. I don't know. No one watches these, so it probably doesn't even matter. So, the aftermath of this movie, after it came out, it did really well in Italy, and even though it got traction in the United States and in the world, it didn't like become huge. It wasn't until later that people really realized what a classic it was, especially for zombie cinema. It is easily one of the 10 best zombie movies that you see out there. And you'll notice I didn't say anything about demons, because there's no demons in this, but, like, what do you expect from a demon sequel? You think there'll be demons in these movies? Come on. This was known as Demons 95, I believe, in some territory. I don't even know what, so it's very loosely related to Demons. The only thing is that it's directed by Michele Soavi, who directed Demons 4 and one of the Demons 3 and acted in the first Demons, so there's a loose connection there, but it's not a Demons movie. And it definitely stands on its own. I really, really enjoy it. After Rupert Everett became, like, big, was his stars, like, in My Best Friend's Wedding, he approached Soavi and he really wanted to remake it for his more American sensibilities, so it would be made in America, was just more, like, people can relate to it more, which, even though this movie was, for an Italian movie, really good at relating to American audiences, I can definitely see what he's saying, where he wanted a remake that just anyone in America could go with, because anytime there's a foreign film not made in the UK, like, the US kind of has a hard time relating to it. But that went nowhere. There was also talks of a sequel that Soavi has always wanted to make, but he doesn't believe that I personally believe it's never going to happen. There hasn't been talks about it in 10 years. And Soavi, actually, after coming out with this movie and all these strings of hits in Italy, he took time away to spend time with his family, and he followed that up with just a bunch of television directing credits. So this is a great director of Italian cinema who just kind of left because he was, like, on top of his game and he was satisfied where he was, and he was willing to just kind of, I don't want to say throw it all away, but just move on from it and do something else with his life. So I find that, like, very respectable. I wish more directors kind of did that, and instead of just kind of, like, petering out or putting out some huge flops. So I do not want to really spoil anything else about this movie. It is just a great movie, and I highly recommend it. Hopefully you guys can find it streaming somewhere, or maybe illegally download it somewhere. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I just want people to see this movie because it's really good. I think it's one of the best that I've reviewed. So that does it with my Year of the Demons reviews. Maybe I'll do a extra review to kind of sum up everything. We'll see. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then, well, I hope you guys will tune in with us next year, where my brother Shane and I will be tackling Year of the Empire, which is the Empire International Pictures, which is the original studio that Charles Band of Full Moon Pictures got his start with and put out a bunch of movies there. So we're pretty much doing Year of the Full Moon Part 2. Hopefully that is much more trendy than this stinker of a Year of the Demons series.